Hello and welcome back to MBA Monday. I'm Angela Guido, the founder of Career Protocol, a former GMAT instructor, a current MBA and career coach, and someone who has dedicated the last 20 years to the problems and solutions of MBA applicants. I am here to help you achieve your MBA dreams, which is really not about business school at all. It's really about you achieving your career potential and having a life and a career you love. But if you're watching me on MBA Monday today, that probably for you includes admission to business school. So that's why we're here today. And specifically today, I'm gonna talk about how to survive the GMAT. If you're still working on your test score, here's how to think about the GMAT as it fits into the broader story of your MBA application and how not to let it get you down. Okay, I'm gonna talk about three things today. The first is alternatives to the GMAT. The second is what you need to do while you're working on the GMAT to ensure that it does the most that it can do to support your candidacy. And third, I'm gonna talk about how to use your score to achieve your MBA dreams no matter how it ends up. So let's start with whether you should even be taking the GMAT in the first place. I'm here to tell you that schools are completely indifferent between the two tests if they accept both. And by the two tests, I mean the GMAT and the GRE. There's also the executive assessment, which some schools accept for full-time MBA programs. All schools accept them for executive programs. Some schools accept that test for part-time programs. So do your research, figure out which tests your schools accept, and then pick the one you like best. You do not have to have a GMAT score for any reason if the school also accepts the GRE. There's a lot of misinformation out there about it. There's this myth that consulting firms prefer the GMAT, or if I have a weak whatever in undergrad, it's better to have a GMAT than a GRE. None of this is true. If schools accept both scores, they are indifferent between them. As long as you have one, you can submit your candidacy, and as long as that test score is solid, it will help your application, whether it's a GMAT or the GRE. So I talk a lot about these two tests on this channel because it causes so much heartburn and heartache for people who are chasing their MBA dreams. And so linked down below is our GMAT playlist. That's right, we have an entire playlist on this subject. So if you still haven't chosen your test and you want all of my advice on how to pick the right one for you, I've got a lot to say about it, so just scroll down and watch some of those other videos. But the first thing you need to understand is that the GMAT is a perfectly fine test to choose, and so is the GRE, and the right answer of which one is right for you is personal. There's no one-size-fits-all answer, so if you haven't chosen, do your research and then pick the school that's best for you. And like I said, down below, I have literally all the guidance you could possibly need to choose the best test for you. Okay, number two, what do you need to do to make sure that your test is as strong as it can possibly be? Well, the answer here is really, really simple. You just need to do your best. But let me break that down because looks can be deceiving. Not everybody can get a 99th percentile score on either one of these tests. You have the training you have the language abilities you have the critical reasoning and logic abilities that you have. You're comfortable with math to whatever degree you are comfortable with math. And although studying, preparing, potentially even taking a class or working with a tutor can make a huge difference, your personal best score may not be a 99th percentile score, and that's okay. That's what I'm gonna talk about in point 3. But while you're still preparing for the test, you need to keep going until you get your personal best achievable score. For many of you, that means you're gonna wanna take a class or you're gonna wanna enroll in some kind of preparation program that either has online lessons or books or practice problems, practice tests, et cetera, et cetera. It may be instructor-led, it may be self-study. There's a lot of different ways you can approach this. In our GMAT playlist down below, our resident GMAT GRE expert Brian breaks down test prep for you and gives you really detailed tips on how to figure out the best way for you to prepare, and then what are the best resources for you to go and do that. The truth is, there are a lot of different ways you can prepare yourself, and many of them are quite good. So figure out the one that's best for you and start there. And then for some of you, that you may even need to go so far as to work with a tutor. Our advice is always to start broad. Start with a self-study program or an online course. They're cheaper, they're more immersive, it gets you kind of trained up in all the basics of the test and the different question types and the skills that you need to excel in all of those question types. And it's kind of like a, test 101 course. You want to start there. And then as you're taking practice tests or possibly even taking the actual test, if you find that you're not achieving your potential and there's just something missing, that's the moment to bring in a coach. That's the moment to bring in a private tutor. And if you're interested in working with Brian from our team, he actually does do private tutoring. We'll link to his consultation form down below. You can chat with Brian about your specific needs and whether or not he can help you get to where you want to go on the test that you've chosen. But the bottom line is you need to not give up. You need to plan for a potentially long road to get your best possible score. And then you need to not quit until you get it. That means you may need to take the test 2, 3, 4 times. You may need to, like I said, hire a tutor. You may need to take a week off of work to immersively study and get yourself ready. You want to take the test super, super seriously, and don't give up until you know you've gotten your personal best score. You'll know you've gotten your personal best score because your actual test is around the same range. It's about as high as your best practice test. And despite studying, trying, practice testing, re-practice testing, you aren't getting any better. You've really maxed out your potential best score. And then when your actual score is as close as it can be to that, that's when you know you've done the best that you can do. Then it's time to move on to step 3, which is figuring out how to submit your best application regardless of what your test score is. So the main thing I want to say right here is that I really, really, really hope you won't let your test score dictate the schools that you can apply to. There's no mystery that having a high test score is very, very helpful and in some cases essential for getting into top schools. How you know a score is high is that it is at or above the average test score at that program. That's just the easy way to tell. Go to the rankings, look at the average GMAT, GRE, look at the percentiles, look at your test, just see where you're at, see if you compare. If you have a score that is at or above the average of a school that you're looking at, then it's safe to say that you should be considered, just on the basis of that test, you should be considered a competitive candidate at that school. Now, we're not talking about your work experience, your essays, your charisma and executive presence for the interviews. That's all still really important. But understanding where your test score lines up with the school's average allows you to calibrate whether or not you're going to be a competitive candidate for that school, or if that school is going to be a reach or a safety. So you want to take that test score and figure out where you line up with your target schools. By the way, if you'd like help doing that, then you might want to consider buying our Stellar School Selector Toolkit, linked down below, so that you can get access to MBA-Mo, our MBA odds calculating robot that will tell you where your profile stacks up against all your target schools, most of your target schools. We've got the top 30 US schools, the top 10 or so European schools, so you can calibrate your score and your GPA, your work experience, the brands. It's much more robust than just your test score, but it includes your test score and it will tell you how your odds stack up against your favorite schools. It also gives you a 20-page readout on everything about you and where you might want to emphasize your development in preparation for your application so that you can submit your very best application possible. Again, that's linked down below. It's a hugely valuable resource, so I hope you'll check it out. But beyond that, the bottom line here is you want to aim high and you want to keep your feet on the ground. That means you take that test score, you develop a portfolio of schools where your scores are competitive and where your scores might indicate that you're a weaker candidate, but it's a school that you still really want to go to, and then make sure you got 1 or 2 safer schools also in the mix. Because you cannot let your test score hold you back. We've had candidates get into top 3 and M7 programs with test scores that were way, way, way below the average, like 2 or 3 standard deviations below the average. So anything in the end is possible depending on the rest of your profile and how amazing your MBA applications are. So don't let the test score hold you back in your choices. Just use it to make sure that you're also protecting your downside risk by applying to some safer schools. This is my advice, and it's based on many, 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 many years of experience teaching the GMAT and coaching people to get into their dream schools, whether they had a great score or whether they had a terrible score. You can still achieve your MBA dreams wherever that test score nets out. So those are your 3 tips. Number 1, pick the right test for you. Number 2, do your best. And then number 3, however that test score turns out, hold on to your dreams, aim high, but then keep your feet on the ground and make sure that you've got some safer schools in your application mix. If you do all those things, you're gonna be in a very different place a few months from when you see this video. If that happens, please leave me a comment. I wanna hear how it turned out. I'm really interested in your success. So much so, I'm gonna be right here next week, yet again on MBA Monday, with more no-nonsense advice to help you achieve your MBA goals.